Hey guys. So I wanted to talk about one of the quick things we learned that has been really working out for us. I work at Care of. It's a personalized vitamin company in the U.S. We only ship to the U.S. so far, but hopefully that'll change soon. So the purpose is to decouple analytics from the code, so that the business people are able to configure their analytics, their events that they want to track without having to talk to developers. When you want to send analytics from an application, you can send it either from your application server or from the client side. There's benefits to both. This talk is about the client side, as opposed to Dennis is talking about the Ruby analytics. And you would maybe prefer to use client-side analytics for more user interfacey things, especially those that never hit the server. Like if they click on a button but don't click on confirm or something like that, that would never make it to the server, so you wouldn't want to use Ruby analytics for that kind of thing. So basically the concept is you give the business access to somewhere where they can define the events and the associated CSS selector that would be associated with that event, and then also an event type. So if it's a click or if it's a form submit or whatever the kind of activity it is. And then we happen to use segment, so you can also configure the integrations that event should be sent to. One thing that we do not configure on a per event basis is the attributes for the event. We send a dictionary of all of the potentially useful properties for each of the analytics events if they're available, which allows us to not have to worry about what the attributes are for a specific event. And we found that the marketing people are able to ignore superfluous information. And that's a lot easier than having to configure what you're going to send for each event. So we use Contentful. So I made a model in Contentful that has the properties of the CSS selector and the name of the event. But you could, if you have an admin interface of some other sort, you could put it in there. It's a pretty simple REST deal. Or you could just have a YAML file depending on your situation. And basically what we do is we have our model in Contentful that has the entries of all the events that we want to track. And we expose them to Ruby, and we use the GON gem to expose them to JavaScript. And then we have a handler, or we have some code that runs on each page that sets up a handler for each of those events. And when that event occurs, it sends the event to segment. And that's basically it. Any questions? Cool. Oh.
Sorry. How is performance with using colorful and because I guess you have to extract files as well?
Sure. So we don't actually have any runtime dependency at all on Contentful. We pull down all the information that we need, and we keep it in a YAML file, which is actually in version control with the rest of the application, which is nice for us because we actually have integration tests that use our Contentful data, and I wouldn't want them to break and not know what changed. So basically, the business has to click a button and merge changes from Contentful into the branch. So there's no performance problem there. Cool. Thank you. Mute.
Just want to do the microphone quick.
I muted
Plug
it.
in.
Cool.
Yep, thank you.
Here you go.
All right. There you go. All right, that was lightning talk number one. Thanks, Eric. Up next, we're going to have Sean Denny. Denny, right?
Denny, yes.
Yeah. And he's going to be talking about something which I have already forgotten.
Bulk pricing.
Bulk pricing, yes. He was very, very much a little bit quicker than me.
Thank you.
So, well, please welcome Sean Denny talking about bulk pricing.
Okay. We're good. We're good. Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Denny. I work for Tube Depot, a US-based company. We sell vacuum tubes, resistors, all sorts of tiny little parts. So I want to talk today about bulk pricing, which is something that adds a lot of value to our business. Unfortunately, we have a small problem with the Solidus volume pricing gym, and that is the cost and the price of our products, unfortunately, due to our business, change a lot. And so if we don't, if we don't stay on top of it, if we don't watch it all the time, unfortunately, we can start selling a product for the bulk price for close to or even sometimes less than what the cost of the product actually is, and that's never a good thing for a business. So we came up with a solution to that. Here's one of our product pages, and it's our tiny little bulk pricing dealie. That's my phone going off. Right, so we do our bulk pricing based on margin. If some of you guys aren't familiar with what profit margin is, that's like when you have a product and you buy it for like $5 and sell it for $10, you're making a 50% margin on that product. So we've got one of our products here, and we decided as a company that we never want to sell anything more than anything for less than a 20% profit margin. So we set that as the minimum price for the product. That's our 100-piece price at the bottom there. And we set that for every product that we have on bulk price. So we've got a piece of code that anytime the price or the cost of a product changes, it looks at the bottom bulk price there, which is 20%, and then it looks at the top margin there, which is the actual margin of the product. It divvies those numbers up and distributes them between the three middle bulk prices here pretty evenly. And it does that every time the price and the cost of a product changes. And because of that, we'll know that we'll never start selling a product for less than what it's actually worth. If our margin is below the 20%, everything just defaults to whatever the price of the product is. So if we were selling this for like a 15% margin, all of this would be 15% margin, $9.95, and yeah, we would know that we weren't losing money on bulk pricing. So it's a bit of a roundabout way of doing bulk pricing. Maybe not the best way, but it does allow us to set the bulk pricing once and then just completely forget about it. And we never, as a company, have to worry about losing money, which is a really good thing. Yeah, so that's really all I had. I guess just as a quick demo, let me you buy this product for $6.33. Let's change the cost to $7, which once it finishes loading.
Is this fraud? Fraudish.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so our margin was 36%, now it's 30%, and every number in between 100-piece price and the one-piece price has now been changed. So obviously I'm about to change this back, but I did just want to demo that real quick. So I think my time's pretty close to being up, and that's really all I had. Yeah, so if any of you guys have any questions about...
So is your bulk range always A through D?
Yes, we set that. I realize some other companies may want different bulk ranges, but we coded this specifically for ours, and we only really want the 10 to 20 and 20 to 50 and so on bulk pricing.
So D is always 20% margin, is that right?
Yes, D is always 20% margin. We can manually set it, and it'll take into account that number when it does its little distributing of numbers, but that's about it. All right, well, thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Sean, for the second lightning talk. Up next, we have coming Larry for Candle Science, judging by the Candle Science shirt that he's wearing and the Candle Scientist sticker that he has on his laptop. You do work for Candle Science, right?
I do indeed work for Candle Science.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. Larry's going to be talking to us a little bit about Onsite search. He's still getting his mic plugged in, so I'm just going to vamp for another minute and talk about what a great first day Solidus conference has been for us. I'm super happy about all the speakers that we've had today. We're going to be having a pub night coming up very shortly, so come to it. Right now, Larry's ready to go. Let's go.
Yes, and Yes, and it's very important that you know I'm from Candle Science, a candle supply making company, because I will be using a candle example later on, so look out for that. But I'm here to talk about search functionality, that once you have more than a couple products, users are going to want to find a way to quickly find and filter your products so that they can find them faster. And users don't want to have to click through link after link and have to navigate through your website in order to do that. And you don't want them to go back out and go to Google and try and search it that way, because Google might be saying, oh, don't buy t-shirts from him, buy t-shirts from this other guy. He's got much better t-shirts. So for many people, it'll be very useful to implement their own search bar on their own site. And there's a number of different solutions you can use to achieve that. One of them, a big name, is Elasticsearch. It's open source and very customizable, but it's not necessarily the solution for everybody. In fact, to kind of get a sense of Elasticsearch and its mentality, the first thing it says in its getting started page is, first of all, don't panic. And when you have to say in all caps, don't panic, well, that doesn't exactly calm me down. So another solution, and the one that we went with, is Algolia. And if you don't want to have to think about the actual science of search algorithms, Algolia just works right out of the box of you just push up data to it, and then client-side JavaScript submits a query and pulls it back down. And it just comes with excellent typo tolerance and fuzzy querying, where it's not quite what you put in, but it's close enough that Algolia can match that. And if you typed prefix, one of the things that I'd be searching for is Arnold Schwarzenegger. And without even having to really know how to spell Schwarzenegger, he's the first thing that pops up. And so that kind of instant search can be very useful, because what we had before, what we used to have, is we had kind of a search bar that was essentially Google site search. And so people would have to type in their entire query into the bar, hit enter, wait for a page load, and then they'd have a list of results. But now, and that would take 2 or 3 seconds, which is forever, but now just type it in, and even before you necessarily finish your query, Christmas. That's what I was searching for, Christmas hearth, Christmas green dye chips. And so if you just want your search to work, and you don't necessarily need the heavy customization that Elasticsearch provides you, Algolia is a great out-of-the-box solution. So that's essentially my demo for Algolia, with only 5 minutes. But does anyone have any questions? No?
Do you have any performance issues with the thing?
Well, so if Algolia occasionally will be a little bit slower, so on those occasions it can be a little performance heavy, but for the most part, if you go to, I might be able to find the Algolia admin, but maybe not in 1 minute's time. But you can see in the admin an average time that it loads. Yeah, so operations 245,000. Yeah, where's top left? Oh, under 14 milliseconds of 90% of queries. So that's pretty good.
How do you send them your data?
So there is an Algolia Rails gem, and a very sensible default is to include it into your model, and then it'll push up attributes of the model to an index. But you can customize it much further than that, but just the defaults, fantastic.
All right, thanks very much, Larry.
All right.
That was very interesting. That's very cool. 14 seconds is fast. You got no slides, Richard?
I got no slides.
All right, just gotta get the mic hooked up. Next up is Richard Wilson. He's coming to us all the way from Victoria, Canada, for working for Stemble. He's here to drop some truth bombs about single-page applications in e-commerce and why they're amazing. Right, Richard?
Yep. Hi, my name's Richard. I work for Stemble, as Gregor just mentioned. I kind of wanted to do this talk because while I was here, in a 24-hour time period, I ended up in two really long discussions about single-page applications. I had one with Eric where we were talking about his use of React, and another with Sebastian, who's kind of planning to do a single-page application. And when I told my colleague that I was going to kind of do this as a lightning talk, he pretty much said, "Are you just going to go up to the stage and just say, 'Don't do it,' and drop the mic and walk away?" Kind of hinting at my bias here. But I can't do that. That's not an appropriate thing to say. A lot of that feeling on my end comes from the fact that just recently I spent a number of months removing Angular from an application, mostly because it was too hard to maintain at that point, and we could keep the functionality that we wanted for that specific site with those specific use cases intact without Angular on the eve of a redesign. 3 years ago, we were big on the Angular bandwagon. We put it in a couple of our stores, and we kind of hit some of the same issues. Whether that was because due to the maturity of the frameworks that we were using at that time, they were fairly new, or just the fact that we weren't totally prepared to use it in that way. And we had to we had to reverse these decisions later on, and we kind of experienced a little bit of pain in doing so. And so we were a little bit more critical about when we were going to use these technologies in the future or how we were going to do them. Now that doesn't mean that if you don't have a team of JavaScript experts that you cannot do amazing things with single-page applications. They've gotten so much better, the JavaScript ecosystem, with ES6 and with how much it's been maturing at the speed that it has been, people can do a lot of the things we couldn't do even 3 years ago. But more of the message that I wanted to deliver was it's okay not to use them. It's okay. There seems to be some sort of myth going around that without a JavaScript single-page application, your site cannot be fast. It cannot be user-friendly. That your users care a lot about spinners or anything else like that. That you can't iterate as fast as things because you can't separate teams from front end and back end. I usually take an approach around progressive enhancement. I usually say, start with nothing and add things as needed. If you want to use React, you can add it to one page and not all pages. If you end up needing something more, you can go down the single page application. Or if you hire somebody who really knows what they're doing, they might be able to bring awesome things to your store. The reason I'm here is because it seems like most new developers out of Lighthouse Labs, for example, which is a boot camp in Victoria, and most people that talk to me when they're new to Solidus, they seem to start with this approach out of the box. All of the exciting things seem to be happening in JavaScript these days. And just because they're super popular and super talked about, doesn't mean that the old technologies or the old ways of doing things are now obsolete. So I just kind of wanted to deliver a quick message saying, it's okay, you have friends. And that's kind of all I had. It's kind of not maybe a topic that's super great for questions, but if you want to grab me later, talk about this, feel free. Or if you have any short questions now, that's cool.
Sorry to say, what do we do on this one?
Thanks, man.
All right, thanks very much, Richard. Just going to get plugged in over here. Use the microphone, you can get plugged in. Next up, we have Taylor Scott. He's going to do recommendations with Elasticsearch. And he's going to have, of course, whoa, how many slides you got there? Seven? Seven? All right. It's going to be touch and go. I think he can do it 5 minutes, starting pretty quick. Please welcome everybody, Taylor Scott.
Hi, guys. I still need to hook in my slides.
HDMI?
Do I have an HDMI?
Yeah, just start talking. I got you.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm going to talk about how we're using Elasticsearch so you can start panicking. So we use Elasticsearch for a lot of things. Search, for one, and also to recommend thoughtful products on what users are looking at. The reason we did this is what we were doing is we were using Prismic, which Eric talked about earlier. And our marketers would use kind of a generic Prismic template to show the same products on every product page. So on the right, you can see that we just have books pretty much in a statue. And it would be kind of weird if I went to a jewelry page and say looked at this tacky ring and would see books. Hey, would you like this? And obviously, I'm probably not interested in books, maybe, but probably not. So what we did was we were already using Elasticsearch, so we decided to take advantage of the significant terms aggregation, and we were able to get better recommendations after this. So this is what it is now. So I look at a ring, it shows other jewelry that people looked at. So we actually, when we index, we index orders and we index users. And when we index users, we index all the products that they have purchased. So this recommendation is actually based off of the orders. So when people bought this ring particularly, they also checked out with these rings. So it's something for, so I guess you would say you might also like when checking out. This gave us good results. So our conversion rate went up 182%. Average order value went up 43%. 39% more revenue through recommendation interactions. So pretty good results. How I did it, this is where things get terrible and ugly, so check out right now. This is a bad drawing I did. So picture each of these blue boxes is a user, and each circle in that is something they've purchased. So there's 12 boxes total. And this is what I'm going to call the background set. And so, yeah, next. All right, so now let's say I'm looking at a blue product. I go to the blue product page, and we want to make a recommendation based on that. What Elasticsearch does is they call this the uncommonly common. And they're going to take all the users, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that have the blue product. So they're looking at all users that have also purchased blue product. And so what you could do is you could find the most popular, most occurring item in there, but that's only going to give you the top products most of the time. So you end up going to be doing these top 5 products for every product page. So if you look at this is what I'm going to call the foreground, everything with the blue in it. And so what it does is it looks at how much does this occur in this foreground set and how much does it occur in the background set. So if you look at the green, in the background it's 25% of the time. If you look at the foreground set, it's in 60% of the data set. So it looks at that and it's like, wow, that's a big change. This is probably something that is correlated with this blue product. Recommend this. And of course the blue is also going to be recommended, just how Elasticsearch works. But that's the gist of my presentation. It's very easy to set up. Elasticsearch is not very easy to set up, but doing recommendations if you do have it. If you have more questions, you can always do a Google search for it. I did make a gem around this. I wouldn't recommend using the gem because I don't support it, but it is a proof of concept of how you can set this up, and you can get very good recommendations, and by recommending products, you can up your sales. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Taylor, for that one. We got one lightning talk left. Last one of the day. We got Edwin Cruz. He's coming to us from MagmaCon. I just got a quick question, Edwin. What's your luchador name?
Tier 8 Trocho.
All right. He's coming to us. So we got a sad and interesting story about something coming up from Edwin from Magma. So please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to share with you something that I faced last week. Yeah. So we were preparing ourselves to receive a lot of traffic because one of our clients, their high season is in summer, so summer is approaching. So we got a bigger database, a bigger app instances. We set up auto scale with 500 milliseconds before reacting, so all good. So the auto scaling in theory it should work. More traffic, more latency, so more latency, more app servers, right? But the admin requests are slow. By nature, the admin requests are slow, so we had either to disable the autoscale or increase the latency thresholds. So, well, what we ended up doing is, we maybe splitting the admin app into a different Heroku app, so everything, they don't share resources, so the requests are processed faster. So it should be good, right? So we have the admin.domain.com, so everything should be okay. But the Rails application that we have, it uses internally acts as tenant. So based on the subdomain, it sets a site. So each site has its own interface and everything. So admin.domain.com will not work. So I will need something like so domain.domainadmin.com. So it goes to a different application in Heroku, so it's in reality splitted. So my first attempt was to create a Rails middleware. I love middlewares, so it's from the middleware I will detect the namespace, and based on the namespace I will redirect it to a different domain. So it was working fine, it worked like a charm. I had to do some tricky parts, like a share namespaces, like the assets and user login and everything. But the thing is that since it was a different domain, the session got lost, so the business didn't like it, so I had to look for something else. So my second attempt was to redirect with a login token, so whenever I sign in and then I perform an admin action, I will redirect to an admin domain with a token. But no, it was not possible because device does not include it anymore. I don't remember why, and it wasn't possible. And also I read somewhere that there is another technique where from your domain, you perform an AJAX request to a different domain with a token, and it says the cookie back. So it's some kind of tricky, but it wasn't possible either because it was only to work with admin. Well, it was going to be needed only with admin. So, okay, I said, okay, let's use something that is designed to do this, right? So I started to play with DHA proxy. I set up the ACL to use backend based on the namespaces. I used Docker and local to test it. It was working fine. So I deployed to Heroku. So the main Heroku app was the DNS is star.domain.com, and then the admin Heroku app was star.domainadmin.com. And the HA proxy was doing fantastic job. It was redirecting everything to a correct backend, but it wasn't working. After hours of dealing, I was pulling my hair off. So the thing is that HA proxy was forwarding the header host name, so the Heroku proxy was redirecting it to the same application. So they go, oh man, how can I do it? So this is the sad part and the cool part about this talk is that everything I had to do is to rewrite the host header, replacing the domain.com by domainadmin.com, and everything started to work like a charm. And that's it. Well, one cool thing about it is that since the DNS was start.domain.com, we started to release this feature to the users progressively. First one subdomain, then another subdomain, and then progressively until we replace everything. So that's it.